Hello again, it's the Ohio Ram Show coming to you here from Southwest Ohio again. We are going to go down to Texas here in a few minutes to meet with Jose Bermudez and his crew chief, Michelle Beckley. But first I want to say that this show is sponsored by the first two time stations you get to in Ohio for the Race Across America, time stations 41 in Oxford, Ohio, and time station 42 in Blanchester, Ohio. And these time stations are open 24 hours a day while the race is going through. And we are there for the racers, for the crews, for the fans, just for whoever wants to come by. And it's a great place to watch the race because the nice thing about our time stations here in Ohio, we're located at the place where the teams are starting to catch up with the solo riders. And so you get to see a lot of action in a short period of time. And that's just a happenstance of where we're at, but it makes it nice. But we're here, if you're in the Midwest, we're a great place to come and see the race because there'll always be people there around the clock. They can tell you what's going on. If you're new to the Race Across America, they can explain it to you and help everybody along their way. We've had some interesting cases of helping riders with unique problems, and we take great pride in being able to do that. Now, the race is going to start at Oceanside, California, 16th of June for the solo riders, and for the teams, they start 4 days later on the 20th. And that means that we expect the racers here in Ohio starting maybe noon or thereabouts on Monday the 22nd, and the last ones will be through here on Saturday. Last year, Christoph Stasser threw a ringer at us. We thought we were going to set up on Tuesday, but he was doing such a great job that he got through here much earlier. So we're kind of changing our dates a little bit in that regard. And while we're at it, if you're located at other places along the route, there is a nice chart, and you'll find a link to it on our website, ohioramshow.com. We'll talk more about that later. That'll give you some idea of where, when races will be through your area. If you'll notice here, I have ours highlighted, but let's say you're at, I have to say I have a cold, and I'm going to try to get through this as best I can, but I couldn't find my cough switch there fast enough. But if you're, say, like at Pratt, Kansas here, you'll see the times that we're coming through. At the top, you'll see what they are, the women's solo, first and last, men's solo, first and last teams, etc. So you can find that link on our website, theohioramshow.com. So with that said, I'd like to just introduce myself, in case you haven't figured it out yet. I'm Lee Kreider, the host of this show, and we just celebrated our 3rd anniversary, and we're coming up to the Race Across America in a very few days here, and we're looking forward to seeing you. By the way, if you're going to come to one of our time stations, we're easy to find in both of these towns. We're right next door to the McDonald's restaurant. Everybody in town knows where that's at, so we're real easy to find. With that said, I'm going to go down to Texas. Jose Bermudez, who rides under the Colombian flag, but he lives in Texas. How are you this evening, Jose? Oh, I didn't turn your mic back on, sorry. Okay, try again, Jose. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Lee, and thanks for having us on the show.
And Jose, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you happen to be here, anything about your life that you'd like to share with us other than riding a bicycle, which you're doing a lot of these days.
Yeah, well, I live in College Station, Texas. I work for Texas A&M University. I've been here I'm a professor of philosophy. I've been here for 5 years. Before that, I lived in St. Louis, so I worked at Washington University in St. Louis. And before that, I lived in Great Britain. I spent most of my life, but I was born and spent the first few years of my life in Colombia, in Bogota. So I'm a little bit from all over the place.
And you're riding this year in under the Colombian flag, is that right?
I am, and I should have done last time, but I didn't get it together too. So
well,
I've
Jose,
got multiple nationalities.
that means that with you on the show, being from Colombia, I now have had guests from every continent. So you helped uphold the South America.
Good. Happy to help.
Tell us how you got into cycling and into ultra cycling.
So when I moved to the United States in 2003, I moved to St. Louis. My major sport before then had been high altitude mountaineering and alpine climbing and ice climbing and stuff like that. And there's just not a whole bunch of that around Missouri. So I happened to find myself on a mountain bike one day and started racing mountain bikes. Then I started racing road bikes, cyclocross, pretty much anything that had two wheels. And that was fun for a few years. Then I moved to Texas, and little College Station's a little itty bitty town, and there's not a whole bunch of bike racing here. So it turned out that ultra racing was easier for me to do a smaller number of competitive events, train hard on my own, and use the nice empty spaces around Texas to train. So I've been doing ultra racing for 4 years, I think, 5 years maybe. Started out with the Race Across the West and done a whole bunch of events since then.
Well, before we go any further, why don't you introduce this young lady I see down here next to you?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm delighted that Michelle Beckley could be here. Michelle's crew chief for me this year in Ram. She's just crewed for me last weekend in Marble Falls, Texas, and last October in Big Bend and No Country for Old Men 1,000-mile race. And great crew chief. Really happy that she's here. And we met a couple of years ago at a bike race in Texas. And she's more than happy to tell you the story.
Well, tell us the story about how you met, Michelle.
So we met at the Texas Time Trials in Glen Rose, Texas, and we had set up. It was my 500-mile attempt, which I have now since decided that I'm more of a 12-hour rider. I like to sleep, so the staying up all night doesn't go well with me. But it was my first attempt at it, and I think Jose showed up 20 minutes before the start of the race to unload his car, which he still had all his extra RAM stuff in that he was going to use to, I guess, sustain himself for the 500. And it was pretty miserable weather, if I remember correctly. I think it rained like the entire night, like all night long. And I think I rode 18 hours in the rain. I couldn't do it. I actually was starting to have some issues. I went into hypothermia because I got chilled, but that's a whole other topic. But in the meantime, Jose, because he'd be around, we were sitting next to each other because it's a loop course, and my husband was crewing for me, so therefore he was helping Jose out. We realized that Jose needed some help getting organized with his racing. And so then we had no idea who Jose was, other than he was some crazy man that just showed up 10 minutes before a race and rode his bike for 500 miles. And I think you finished first in that grouping, but then the fast guys started at a later time.
That's right.
I don't remember what your time was on that one, but
well, it wasn't great. It was about 35 hours. It was good enough for third place, I think.
Yeah, but I think you rode through the worst weather, because I think if you started later, you would actually maybe not have ridden through the crappy weather. But anyways, you never know.
It was a good
it's
day.
Texas.
You
never know what you're going to get. So that was how we met. And then, was it the next year that we crewed for you?
I think so, yeah.
I think so. And so we crewed for you. I guess it was 2 years ago? Yeah, it would have been 2 years ago. Because it was right after it would have been 2. So then last year we crewed we just crewed for several 500-milers, and we have no 24 hours and then several 12 hours, which I realize is too many people all at once. So you stick with either pick a race and crew for that race is my new motto on that one. It got too complicated. Huh?
It's nice at Texas Time Trials. It's kind of a big party.
It is a big party. It is a big party of a race. And you did well on that one. You did better. You had your best time, I think.
I think it was 31 and a half hours. It's pretty quick.
Yeah. So we just pretty much fed Jose the whole time.
Jose, are you on a laptop?
I am.
Could you just pull your camera down a little bit so we can see you a little better?
That work?
That's better, yeah.
I always think I was just sliding down my chair.
Well, like I told them before we started, we're certainly not professional here, and as I said, we don't have to tell anybody that. All I have to do is watch for about 5 minutes. They got that figured out. But Jose, let's go over your ultracycling record a little bit. What have you done? And I know that you've had rather remarkable performance just recently, but go over your record a little bit.
Well, the first race I did was the Race Across the West, and I was supposed to do it as a two-man team, and the guy I was doing it with dropped out about 6 weeks before the start, so I ended up doing it solo at kind of short notice. And that sort of got me hooked. That was a pretty nice event, kind of hard work. That was the first ultra race I did, and I've done the Texas Time Trials, I think, 4 years. Yeah, four consecutive years, finished on the podium each time in the overall men's category. I did Dex Took's 1,000-mile No Country for Old Men last October and came third in that with Michelle and Martin, a few other people from the Ram crew on board. A couple of other smaller races. We had a great ultra scene in Texas. I did the first Brookshire 511 last year and won that, and won 24 hours in the canyon. These are small races, but they're quality and they're kind of hard work. Usually there's either a lot of sun or a lot of wind or a lot of both.
I was glad that Dex had it on that 1,000-mile race, and I think he was a little concerned whether he would get a turnout for it. I guess he actually filled up, didn't he?
He got a pretty good field. It's a tough route because the race loops around all over the place. Michelle knows this better because she was navigating it. I was just riding my bike.
Yeah, you're out of there's no cell phone coverage on that race, so you don't know where your rider is. So we had two crews to switch off. It was a little difficult. You kind of had to try to predict where they were. I think he's going to have trackers this time, so that will help. That will help crews quite a bit because at least you'll know how to get the quickest route to when you want to do a crew change. So the crew change, you try for 12 hours, they're never 12 hours. So it was a little more difficult on that race. And
there's nothing out there in that part of Texas.
Yeah.
You just leave this little settlement of 200 houses and ride for 140 miles and get to another little settlement with not too many houses in it.
Yeah.
You see some cows on the way.
Did we see cows? I mean, we saw a lot of rabbits.
Yeah, a lot of jackrabbits and some rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
I think there were some cows.
Well, Dex tries to tell me that there's some monsters roaming around out there or something.
Yeah, that'll be the chupacabras.
The chupacabras. No. Oh yeah, he's got that. I think there's a cow. What's the steer? There's the steer.
The Murder Maverick steer.
Oh yeah, we never saw him. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun race. It's kind of hard work.
See him, you're going to die. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the Murder Maverick steer.
Yeah. Leave it to Dex for that. And you talked about the trackers. I see that you had the tracker on the Texas Ram Challenge that you did a couple of weeks ago. That is so wonderful. And we had Lon Haldeman on here a couple of weeks ago. Well, actually, it hadn't aired yet when we were recording tonight, but when time people see this, he will have already seen Lon Haldeman, and he tells about how they tried to keep track before the days of cell phones, internet, or anything else. It was quite interesting, and I can remember those days myself. And so you just recently did the Ram Challenge there in Texas, right, Jose?
Yeah, that was another good event. It's quite nice weather this year. But on the warm side, it's the first really hot day we've had this year. It was in the mid-80s, which is not very warm for Texas in May and June, but it's pretty warm for March.
And you did the 400 mile, and I see you came very close to cracking the 24-hour, didn't you?
I did, with a little better, you know, if I'd got my act together, we would have broken 24 hours. But
and you were crewing for that, Michelle, right?
Yeah, I was. There was 3 of us on that crew. That's a difficult race to crew. There's not a lot of straight, so it's navigation. You have to be on your toes on that one, and turning, and there's lots of twisty turnings, and you're on some very roads with no shoulders, and they're kind of narrow. Lots of motorcycles, so you're just kind of having to keep an eye on it's hard to keep an eye on your rider while you're just trying to crew for them on that one. So it's a tough crew race to crew for that race, but we did luck out and had beautiful weather, and all the Texas bluebonnets were out, so it was nice. Pretty. Yeah, it was a pretty race.
But pretty much every motorcyclist from New Mexico to Louisiana was out on those roads that weekend.
I saw some of the photos of those guys out there. Jose, tell me about now you did RAM when?
I did RAM in 2013.
2013. How did that go for you?
It was an interesting experience, and pretty much everything went wrong that could go wrong. So we had a very small crew. We lost the nurse the day before when her father died. So we went out into the desert, and I got massive dehydration, ended up in the hospital in Brawley, stayed there for 10 hours, got back on the bike, chased a lot of people down. Everyone was having trouble with this incredibly hot summer. Got over the
were you on that crew, Michelle?
No, I was not on that crew.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Jose, what did you learn in 2013 that you're going to apply or do different in 2015?
Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, first, organization planning is key. So a good race plan, good logistics, good thinking about when you need to look after the bike, when you need to take sleep breaks, proper organization in the back of the follow vehicle, all that stuff we've got much better worked out. Better heat management in the desert, not going out too hard, because once you've lost a lot of time in hospital and you've got a whole bunch of imbalances in your metabolism and minerals and all that kind of stuff, then things go south pretty much after that. So that's why I ended up with pretty bad Sherman's neck for 500 miles, and ended up quitting in the middle of Kansas.
Okay, so you DNF'd in 2013, correct?
I DNF'd in 2013.
Well, you've got a lot of good company. I always say, Yuri Robic DNF'd, Christoph Strasser DNF'd, Gerhard Gulowitz DNF'd, I think, last year, wasn't it? So you've got a lot of good company. My theory is, Jose, anybody that makes it to the start they're already a winner, but I know that doesn't deal with the disappointment you have.
It's just one of those things. You've got to figure out what went wrong and fix it and go back and sort it out.
So, Michelle, tell me a little about your crew. What's it looking like? Have you got everybody you need?
Yeah, we have 9 crew right now. So we've got pretty much everybody's experienced. So we've got a very good experienced crew. I know all of them except for one person that we're going to have a physical therapist who is in Singapore, and then she's Irish. So we kind of have a crew. Our crew's pretty spread out, but most of the people I know, and then the other ones I'm meeting to talk with, and we have I think we have probably a really, really good, strong crew. And we've got a good mechanic, we've got a nurse, we've got a lot of OCD people, and we've got people who are relaxed too. So kind of a good complement of group of people to kind of keep everybody going across RAM.
And everyone's either a cyclist or they've done ultracycling crewing before.
Yeah. So
they got a little idea about what you're up against.
Yeah. I think, we definitely have a very strong crew. And then your coach is coming. Jose hired a coach since we first met, too. And I think that's the success on your last race. Your power number, his power numbers, we watched his power. We figured out how to watch his power in the follow vehicle. And he didn't lose his power on that last race. So so his watts stayed pretty consistent through the whole race. So I think she's really helping you become much stronger and much more even. Yeah.
Well, the coaching for ultra cycling is becoming a sort of profession in itself almost. We see a lot of people getting into it.
Well, the big lesson for me was riding smarter and riding less distance, higher intensity, and with good recovery.
What kind of
massive?
What kind of sleep pattern do you generally follow, or you think you will follow, given the fact that plans always have a way of going awry?
I think for RAM, we haven't kind of figured this one out totally yet. We're still putting the race plan together, but we will be looking for daily sleep breaks that are meaningful, certainly at least 90 minutes, to get some good recovery going. We didn't do that in No Country for Old Men, and I think it would have been tough to continue for another 2,000 miles after that.
You probably would have been fine. Just a 3-hour sleep. You would have been good. It's a joke.
Great. She's my cheerleader.
I'm a cheerleader, yeah. I don't let him quit. He wants to quit. I'm the one that tells him to just keep going. He's not dying. He can keep going.
Well, as Fred Bothling says, keep him on the bike and keep him going forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, I decided to, and we had a little bit of trouble scheduling Jose here. He's a very busy person, and we kind of fumbled around. Finally, I said, I do want to get you on because I have a very personal interest in the charity for which you are riding. And let's talk a little bit about this. It's Habitat for Humanity. Jose, tell us about that.
Yeah, Habitat for Humanity, and in particular our local chapter here in Bryan College Station, basically helps people help themselves. It provides housing for families that are prepared to commit to helping build the house, helping sustain it, paying a mortgage, and basically develop themselves as responsible homeowners. And this is something that it's important to me. I spend a lot of time riding my bike around Central Texas, and we've got a lot of income inequality. We've got a lot of very disadvantaged people. We've got some terrible housing all across rural Texas, and you don't really see much about it, but it's noticeable when you start putting in hundreds of miles on the bikes. So I think what Habitat does is really important and really meaningful. But in 2013, I didn't finish the race, but I was proud that the people in College Station and really across the whole country helped raise $55,000 to build a Habitat house.
Well, I've got your website up here on the show on the screen at the moment, and what we'll do, Jose, is when the people watch the show, they can go to the show notes, which will be right below the video on the website, and there's a place there where people can donate. We're going to talk a little more about how Habitat works, but you can donate to Jose's funds there for Habitat. And
yeah, and before you go any further, Lee, I just want to emphasize that all those donations go to Habitat for Humanity. Nothing is there to cover my race expenses. That's the race expenses are my problem. The fundraising is solely to benefit the cause of Habitat for Humanity.
Well, that's always good to know, and I'm glad you emphasized that. But I was going to say, if you're watching the show on YouTube or one of the several websites that embeds the playlist, you'll have to go to, in order to get to that page I'm showing you there, you will have to go to the show website, and I'm putting that up now, the OhioRamShow.com, and find this show with Jose, and you will see a place there right below the video where you can click and find out more about Habitat, and also I'll put the link to the Habitat main site there, Jose, as well, and you can follow that a little bit. Well, let's get back to how Habitat works. Now, I've been around it and I know, but a lot of people aren't familiar with it. This isn't just giving people.
No, this Habitat is about helping people help themselves. It's about volunteers coming together with a family that will be living in the house to build the house. And anyone who lives in a Habitat house has to have invested about 500 hours of their time in the construction and painting and landscaping of their property. And in College Station, we have a couple of subdivisions that are solely occupied by Habitat for Humanity houses. I think over 200 houses have been built. And
these people have a mortgage just like the rest of us.
Correct.
Yeah,
I think so basically, these are basically families, hardworking people who, through no fault of their own, living in rented accommodation, and really want to make the transition to home ownership for their children.
And they apply to the organization for consideration.
And then the decision is made based on their commitment really to build a house, and their commitment to paying the mortgage, and I think it's pretty tough competition. Obviously, the more houses there are, the less competitive it is, and that's kind of what we're trying to achieve.
And they're very nice houses. They're nothing fancy or anything like that. Now, I was telling Jose and Michelle before we went on the air that our church here locally does 2 of these a year, and we have one of these projects where we frame the house all in a few hours. These people who do this, they come in a day ahead of time. They do all the cutting and everything's marked, and each team gets a set of plans, and they go get their material and they put their frame together, and unbelievably, in 3 or 4 hours, they have the house framed. They put the framing up on the parking lot so people can see what they've got. It's quite an operation, and as I said, our pastor then went to Boise, United Methodist Church in Boise, Idaho, a large church, and they do 2 at a time there. So that's kind of fun to get involved in that, and then they take the house apart and take it over to the site where the foundation's been prepared, and then they bring in the experts, electricians, plumbers, and so forth, skills like that a normal homeowner might not have. Isn't that correct, Jose?
Yes, that's exactly right. And a lot of people donate their services. There are some very committed volunteers that help with the building, and then also, as you said, Lee, some specialist plumbers and so forth, electricians that do that aspect of the construction.
And
as well as people like you and I that can manhandle
it's an international organization too. I mean, they build houses all over the world. I know this same church, we build a house also once a year in Mexico. Of course, it's somewhat more, it's smaller and more less complex, but they put a family in a nice home and with running water and all the things that we take here in this country for granted. But they do one house a year down there as well, and I know there's a lot of other people do that. Well, we really appreciate that, Jose, and I'm happy to emphasize that feature of what you're doing is because I have a personal interest in Habitat. I think they do a wonderful job. I've seen a lot of their good work. And the amazing thing, Jose, is you can go back a couple years later, and these people generally take very good care of their homes.
Yeah, I think if you look at the Habitat for Humanity subdivisions in Bryan College Station, they're kind of set apart from some of the housing around them, which is a little bit more run down and less well maintained. A lot of rental properties, and no, they're exactly as you say, very well maintained. So I would encourage anyone listening that's thinking about charitable contributions to look at the link that Lee's providing, or get on my Facebook page. Just go to my name, Ram, and that'll get you there. And think about a contribution.
Like I say, we'll have those. It'll be right down here. If you're watching it on the website, you'll see those links, and you can pick those up and make a donation. I think it's really a worthwhile cause. Well, you know, all the causes we have here on the show are so wonderful and hard to tout one over the other. But I do have my heart's with Habitat. I've enjoyed being a part of that, and in what little way I have. Well, Jose, we wish you the best in this upcoming race. We hope that, first of all, you stay safe.
Thank you.
And I apologize to everybody else for this cold. I almost thought about canceling the show tonight, but we're getting so close and time's getting so short, and I did want to get Jose on here, so I apologize for the hoarseness and the cough and what have you, but such it is. And Michelle, we want to wish you the very best. Keep yourself awake out there, and we don't want any accidents from you either, okay?
Alrighty.
That's number one. Be safe. And
driving over the rider is not a good thing.
No, it isn't. And,
no, usually that's frowned upon.
And I know you've had an experience there, and it sounds like you're getting your organization together. So we'll be back to you here in just a minute. But before we go further, I do want to take just a moment to highlight a couple of things that are important to those of us who are interested in ultra racing. First of all, John Foote's ultraracenews.com. If you want to know what has happened, what's going to happen, stories there about the race stories, records, coaching, equipment, just about anything you want to know about ultra racing, ultra cycling, you'll find there on ultraracenews.com. John does a wonderful job, and on the Ohio Ram Show website, you'll see a link to that. And while we're at it, excuse me, ridefarther.com, that's the site we're going to be talking about here. The next show is going to be with Dick Armijo, I should say. I always get his name mixed up a little bit. Who is head of Media One for the Race Across America. That's the crew that will be out with the leaders. And he's going to step us through on how we can be following the race while it's going on. So that'll be there. But meanwhile, ridefarther.com, put that in your bookmarks, because that's where all that information is going to be. I want to thank everybody who supports the show. We do appreciate it. As I said, we just celebrated our 3rd anniversary, and we're thankful for all the following we get. On the OhioRamShow.com, you'll find a place where you can put your comments in. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you who give us a like or a plus or something like that. My throat's about to go, folks. And, well, I'm going to call this quits here. Say, what do you got to tell us before we leave?
Well, first, let me thank you, Lee, for doing this and for battling through your cold and your cough. And I think I'm just very grateful to the Michelle and the crew for coming along and supporting me, and for anyone who donates to the Habitat for Humanity house that I'm trying to build. And I think it's going to be fun. And hope I don't let anyone down this year.
And Michelle?
Yes. You know, a lot of the reason why the crew are crewing for Jose has to do with the donations that he did in his past for the Habitat for Humanity. That definitely had something to do with my decision to take 2 weeks of my life and follow somebody at 10, 15 miles an hour across the U.S. for 3,000 miles. You know, it definitely is. I mean, it's a lot of organization, but I think that raising money for a charity also makes it not so selfish. I think that's why a lot of his crew is crewing for him.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for all of your support. Do what you can out there. I won't say any more about it, because this throat is right at the end of its limits. And good night. See you at the Race Across America, everybody. Bye-bye.